Hello, I'm Alix.
I'm Kelly.
And this is the LitJoy Podcast. On today's episode, we have two special guests, Michael and Hayley Burson. Michael Burson is a self-taught cosplayer and sewist with 9 years creating costumes and fashion pieces that inspire him. Audience Choice winner of the Her Universe fashion show at San Diego Comiccon 2022, Michael has a passion for education and showing the behind-the-scenes process of his builds to help others create their art as well. He cosplays from Marvel, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Hayley Burson is a full-time public librarian and part-time cosplayer. She began cosplaying with her husband, Michael, in 2016, and the two of them have shared their many adventures with their love of creating together. Hayley specializes in hand embroidery and beading, wig styling, and creating silly videos. She especially loves cosplaying from fantasy, Marvel, Disney, and Game of Thrones. When she isn't cosplaying, she enjoys playing The Sims, doing yoga, thrifting, and playing with her rescued mixed poodles, Bilbo and Basil. Welcome to the LitJoy Podcast. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here.
Okay, we just want to jump right in and have you guys do a quick little introduction about who you are and how you guys got started on, social media and what you were hoping to accomplish when you started your accounts, because it's definitely taken off, I've noticed. We've been following you guys, I don't even know, for at least 5 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just curious to hear the whole backstory about where it all began.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's so nice to hear. I think it all kind of happened by accident. It was one of those things where it was probably, it's like 2016.
Yeah, 2016. Mm-hmm.
We, let's see, it was like Halloween and I wanted to cosplay Marjorie Tyrell from Game of Thrones. So, we just went on the internet and I was looking up costumes and then I just kind of discovered that people were actually like making like really good ones and just like, I was like, are people just doing this for Halloween? Like, this is amazing. Like, who's like spending all this time and energy to make like one Halloween costume? And then I found like, oh no, this is like a whole thing. Like people are like making costumes and, like very like screen accurate looking. I was like, this looks fun. I want to do this. Cause I always like had a love of thrifting. And, Michael's like, oh yeah, I know how to use a sewing machine. And we had been together for like, a long time.
I've never 5 years or so.
I had never heard that he knew how to use a sewing machine. So this was like, I was like, since when?
I learned in middle school. It was like a home economics class and they taught us how to use it. So it's just sending it through the machine. So like, oh yeah, we could do that. We could whip up a Halloween costume for Game of Thrones. That'd be fun.
So yeah, then after that, we like borrowed one of our friend's sewing machines. And then I just learned that Michael could do that. I'm like, oh, now that I know you could do that, like,
because we would go to conventions here. We live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we go to conventions collecting comics. We were in grad school, and that was kind of a nice little aside from reading journal entries and all kinds of academic stuff. Is it'd be fun to read a Batman comic every once in a while, and so that was like, oh, let's go to one of the conventions in Charlotte and dress up like Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So Force Awakens was coming out that year, and I made a Kylo Ren out of burlap because that was all I could afford. And the helmet was made out of cardboard and plaster, and I looked up a tutorial on how to do it online.
Yeah, and it was like mine was all like curtains and things I could thrift from the thrift store.
You did Ray.
I did. Oh yeah, I did Ray, and then I found like some pants. I just like altered them, and like that was our first like time going to a convention in a costume, and it was like exhilarating.
It was so
fun.
Yeah.
And everyone was so nice. And it was like, oh my gosh, you also love Star Wars? I love Star Wars. Like, it's like, and I guess we just started posting online and then we just started making silly, goofy videos and just, and it was,
there was never really any goal with the social media stuff. It was just kind of sharing our art with people. And, because that's what we were into, and people just love watching the tutorials and stuff. It's really exciting that the behind the scenes stuff, not just the finished product, is enjoyed.
How did you like just start whipping up sewing out of nowhere? Because you took the class in, you said like high school?
Middle school, yeah.
I took middle school. And like I took that class.
Me too.
I made like 20 pillows to pass the class. And I was like, I can do little squares, and then I haven't gone back since. And so I'm like, bridge that gap for me of like, how did you go from that to just whipping up a Game of Thrones costume?
It's my early stuff definitely fell apart. It's all disintegrated because I didn't know about finishing seams. I didn't know about like the technical side of sewing. It was just send it through the machine and stitch it and just do a rolled hem that isn't even rolled twice, and it all disintegrates from the inside. And we did a Hobbit costume, a little bodice for Hayley, and I pulled the strings all tight in the back, and all of the seams on the sides popped open because it was a woven fabric, and I didn't do any reinforcing on the inside, so it just exploded. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you're gonna have to wear it this way. And so I've always, like precision work is more my thing, is like paper patterns, is cutting those out and seeing where the sizes go and everything. And just, I just Googled every term I didn't know, which was all of them. There's so much technical stuff that you don't know how to do. And then you just Google it. Like most stuff you don't know how to do. And I just learned. So it was like a step-by-step process, lots and lots and lots of mistakes, lots of seam ripping, lots of messing up. But it's been really fun.
I want to go back. You mentioned that going to your first con or your first like conference festival type setting, that you felt this connection to the people who were there, where you were like, yes. Oh, you love fandom too. And I am curious to know what that experience has been like, both in conferences and online, and connecting with people who love fandom as much as you do.
That's like so true. I was even thinking when Michael was just talking about like Googling all the terminology and stuff, like another big thing we do is reach out to other cosplayers that are either making the same outfit or like they're really good at a certain skill. So we would just like DM people on Instagram, just be like, hey, how did you do this? Yeah. And like, and it would just be like that part of it just became more of like, it felt very community focused. We were very fortunate to meet some like really nice people who would just help us learn. And one, like, it's like, it's in like going to the conventions themselves. It's like I would be wearing like, I don't know, like Luna Lovegood, and I'd see another Luna Lovegood and I'd just be like, you're like,
yeah.
It's just like it's like such a cool thing when you're dressed up. Like, I know we've all had Halloween experiences where you like dressed up as something for Halloween, you see someone else dressed as the same person, and you're like, I know we're going to be friends.
We're very into the same thing, obviously. Yeah. So that's what's great about cons is we've met people all over the country and all over the world, and we're kind of mad at all of our friends for living in Colorado and Connecticut and London and all over the place, because we really only see them like at conventions. And so we really look forward to them throughout the year to just gather and people watch and talk with our friends and hang out and make silly TikToks and just have so much fun.
There's so much crossover, right? In our reader community, to like the con community. And we've been to many cons as well, focused in different bookish genres and like Leaky Con and Book Con and all those. And there's definitely like an energy there. And everyone just feels like we're on the same level of like you were talking about, like, we got it. I got like what you got, we understand each other, let's connect, let's talk. And it's like immediate friendships were formed. And I just love that you guys have found so many incredible friendships through it. Seems like. I'm also curious if there's any of this passion for sewing, design, and costuming that has been threaded in your like childhood. Do you guys feel like, I'm just curious because I'm wondering if any of this ever crept up at any point when you were younger, or if this is just something you realize later that you're so passionate about.
So yes, definitely. I was definitely the kid that held onto every single Halloween costume, and I had them in a big blue bucket. And I would hold on to old curtains, and I would cut holes in them to make cloaks out of them, and run around in the woods around my house and dress up all the time. So it wasn't like construction, but it was always dressing up as something that was like play. That was like fun fantasy time. And so then there was like the middle school class, and then we were big Harry Potter fans, and so we I do like Hogwarts robes for the midnight release parties back in the 2000s. I think that was my first like costume I really made was a Hogwarts robe, and it was terrible. Just like disintegrated, and all the edges and all the seams were terrible. But it was really fun, and I didn't touch it until that Halloween in 2016. It was college, and that takes up all its time, and so yeah, it's just like crafty, fun adventure time was what I was love dressing up. It's fun.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about the Harry Potter book releases. Because me and Michael, we met in college in Charlotte, North Carolina, but both of our families grew up like in the Asheville area. But we had never met or anything. But we realized after we had met, we were both at the same Deathly Hallows book release, because I remember Michael's costume and he remembered mine, because I remembered his was like a Ravenclaw student. And this was like
2007, yeah.
And it was like the most legit looking, like just, like back then it was like very hard to find like super
I didn't
legit.
make that one though.
Yeah, but I just remember this, like, that guy's real serious. He remembered me. He remembered me because I like was the fat lady and I had like a picture frame on, like,
oh my God.
It's like, oh, that's so clever. It's a picture frame around your neck. Yeah, I remember her from that. And then like 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 years later, we're like, oh wait, I remember you.
I definitely remember you.
Yeah.
So weird. But yeah, I like Michael. I always had an interest in fashion and clothes. I remember being like in the elementary school library, like my favorite books were the ones that were just like the nonfiction, like costume throughout the history books. And I would just like flip through them, like look at all the pretty pictures. And then I also just loved thrifting, and I did theater. So I'd always like loved making the costumes. I could never sew. I never attempted to sew, but I would just like find, like, I would just like love to look up the eras and fashion history and like try to find like costumes that worked for the era. That was like my favorite thing to do in theater. So yeah, I don't know. Then we just kind of had these mutual things and we just did it together, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grad school's hard. We need something. We need some whimsy about all of that. Something to take your mind off all the studying.
I want to know a little bit, because you mentioned, Hayley, you mentioned you're like, I never attempted to sew, and Michael's like, I was always kind of crafting them just a bit. And I'm kind of curious, what is your process now for listeners? How do you kind of divide and conquer or brainstorm, or what's your creative process together on these different, beautiful pieces that you're putting together?
Oh, that's so funny. Michael's very perfectionist, type A. Every line is straight. Everything is perfectly matched and symmetrical. And I'm the complete opposite. My style is very like organic and I go with the flow, and if it doesn't look good, okay, I'm just going to go with it and make it look good. Add more stuff on it.
Yeah. She definitely calms down when I'm like, oh, this doesn't look exactly like the show or the movie. And Michael, it's fine. It's fine, Michael.
Perfect.
Just get over it.
Yeah. So are you both constructing? So I'm like, I just as a follow-up, are you both constructing then the costumes now?
So I'd probably do most of the construction because I do the sewing.
Okay.
Hayley, so as far as our process goes, we both do a ton of research before we start any kind of build. So Hayley's a librarian, so she literally has a master's degree in research. And she finds like reference images. We work really hard to find like well-lit reference images, costumes that have been on display rather than like in the color-corrected movie where it's like, is that dark blue or is that like just a regular blue or is that purple? It drives us crazy. So we collect a whole bunch of reference images, and then Hayley researches the fabrics because she does all the research and finds like the perfect stuff every time, and it's amazing. And then I take it and I cut it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's only been a couple that I haven't worked on. That was like ones that he was like competing with, like basically all your Doctor Strange costumes. But for the most part, Michael does like all of the machine sewing, like all the pattern cutting, all the big construction and everything. And if sometimes there's like embroidery or beading or
then I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah.
And you'll do all the fun decorative stuff or the making it dirty and weathering it, because that I hate weathering costumes. I'm like, no, make it shiny and pristine. And then Hayley takes it and throws paint all over it. I'm like, oh, it looks better. You're right. It looks better. It looks worn in.
I'm like, how do you know which ones to do next?
That's really hard. We have on my notes app, I have like a list of the cos plans we want to do, and it just gets longer and longer and longer all the time. And then like House of the Dragon's going to come out this summer, and there's going to be new dresses from that. And so there's things from like 50 years ago, or a video game, Baldur's Gate. I'm obsessed with that right now. So I want to do like 3 different things from Baldur's Gate. It's really hard.
And sometimes it just depends on like what we have what we've already purchased the fabric for, or have the fabric for, because it's like, okay, if it's sitting in a hoard and on a shelf, we have to use it because it's just sitting there. But yeah, like Michael's saying, sometimes it's like a joke almost. Like we can't just watch a movie or watch a show without like coming out like, oh, it'd be so fun to make that. Like, no, we can't. We have to.
Just any media, like watching the Oscars, like, oh, there's a runway dress. Okay, I have to make that. And oh, there's an Alexander McQueen suit that just came out. Okay, I want to wear that. It's kind of like following the passion of the moment. And then, whatever we can research and find the materials for and make it look the way we want to. It's a lot of fun.
So after you create a design and, use it for whatever purpose. It sounds like a lot of times you wear them to cons or competitions purely for enjoyment. What happens to them after?
Ooh.
Like, do you use them again? We talked about like, do they get more miles used in them? Are they kind of like put away to keep pristine after that to add like a collection? So I'm just very curious. I bet you have such an amazing like closet full of designs.
Like 2 full closets.
It's just the 2 of us living here. So 2 of the bedrooms closets are costumes. But
amazing.
We do try to like go in them because it can be very wasteful if you don't. And some we like, of course, like let our friends borrow to conventions if we have one that like could work for them. And we also have a lot of like little Ren Fair things that we've just collected that.
Yeah, you just recycle pieces like, oh, we're going to the Ren Fair. I'll use this cape and this jacket and this skirt, and we'll just kind of Mod Podge it together. So we don't get rid of a lot just because like, oh, we might be able to use this someday.
And it's sentimental. So it's like, even if it doesn't fit great, I don't know. I don't know. So we put so much love into them. So I feel like.
Yeah, we know cosplayers who have storage units. Like they keep their stuff. We're not to that point yet. We might someday.
It's the ones that I know that do a lot of ball gowns. Like.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of units. Yeah, they need room. But no, we do try to use them over again. We go to conventions throughout the year. Dragon Con is our favorite con of the year, and we usually bring our favorite costumes to that one. But then even local cons, like I've volunteered with the library for Superhero Day, and I've worn my Doctor Strange to that and met kids. Cool. So it's they get a lot of use. They do. Especially like our favorites, like Doctor Strange, Agatha from WandaVision, a couple of those. We've got a lot of wear out of those.
What are your favorite ones? I know that's like probably a hard question to answer.
That's so hard.
But what are the ones that maybe you could pick a couple where you're like, I love this one because of this and this one because of this, that kind of a thing.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, Doctor Strange is my guy. That's the kind of my go-to character. So I got to say him. Oh, that's so hard. Cause I just finished Peter Baelish and I'm really proud of him. I feel like I did a pretty good job as I made a Peter Baelish about 5 years ago and I just remade it, kind of with different fabrics, and looking at my growth from 5 years ago was really cool. So I'm really proud of the work I did on that.
Is that the one that you just posted on social media?
Yes, we just wore those.
You kind of showed, to
C2E2. Yeah.
That was fun to kind of see your progression as an artist too there. To see just like a little bit behind the scenes of like your seam work and everything, and to just see and I think too there's so many people connect with one another through fandom and stories. It's just that's part of why we run LitJoy. That's like our purpose, is to connect through stories. And I think it's really fun for those kind of aspiring or those, newly cosplayers coming in to see like progression that you can have with your skill and your craft, because they definitely, I feel like it's an inspiration to them,
That's so sweet. That's so important to us, is exactly that. Is often there's so much emphasis placed on the final product. It's pump out a costume a week and what's new, what's next, what's exciting, what's the most popular video game or show, and I'm cosplaying from it, and I did a really good job. And we take like 3 months to finish. Baelish took about 3 months, I think. Allison took 3 weeks. We really rushed that one for C2, but we didn't do anything else for 3 weeks. But yeah, we have full-time jobs, so we can't produce things at that speed. And so really showing the process along the way is like, these don't just spring into existence. It's a lot of work and a lot of like error and mistakes. And we try to show that too. Like, I tried this, it didn't work, it didn't fit, I'm seam ripping it, I'm so frustrated. But showing that too, like I'm just like a goober, like is trying to figure out how all of this works. And it's the whole skill into itself. So yeah, we love showing the behind the scene thing.
For sure.
What are your favorites?
Reminds me of that quote of overnight success. It never happens overnight.
Right.
It takes years.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
that everyone just thinks it happens overnight. But yes, I want to hear from you, Hayley. Tell me about your favorite.
Yes, very hard question. I think one of my favorites to wear would be Agatha Harkness from One Division, just because she's a witch. I don't know, being a witch is so fun. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just channeled that witch energy. It's really fun. And I also love, we've made 2 different Sleeping Beauty dresses, and they're also both my favorites because that's like one of my favorite like childhood movies, adulthood movies. So like I love the art in that movie. So I get really inspired from it. Especially like that medieval era. Like I just think it looks really pretty. So I love wearing those. They make me feel really glamorous.
Yeah.
I love that. I've seen all these photos too, so I know what you're talking about. And there's like the second half, I feel like, of creating costumes, which is embodying whoever it is, like, or whatever it is the costume is. And you guys do both so well. And it just feels like it gives you permission to like lean into that more. I don't feel like I dress up as often as I should. In our book club, we try to do it at least a few times a year. And whenever we finally go all out and dress up, there's just this freedom that comes with it of just being like, have a persona on and to feel fancy.
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Yeah.
We're just chatting now. So what I wanted to ask you guys about was, we've already mentioned a couple experiences that have come about through, creating these costumes and visiting these cons. What experiences or opportunities have come your way through this shared passion? I'm sure there's many, but we'd love to hear about some of them that really stick out to you.
Let's see. We've really been excited to have a lot of collaborations with like really cool brands. I'm a Janome sewing machine. I'm part of their maker program. For Moray Cutlery, I use their scissors. Aliso irons. I'm not trying to just do a commercial for all my brands, but these really kind brands reach out to us and we're like, hey, we'll send you some of our stuff if you'll tag us while you're doing your work. And that's really cool. Is I've got a pretty sweet setup in my sewing room upstairs of things that like I'm got brand deals. And then we get to go, like I got reached out to at San Diego Comiccon last year from people at Marvel. And they say, hey, Michael, would you come and judge the Marvel costume contest at the Marvel stage at San Diego Comiccon? I'm like, oh my gosh, sure. That's crazy. For Marvel reaching out to me. That's pretty cool.
Well, even like you mentioned the experience of dressing up for like a superhero a day or something, I'm just like, I love that there's so many ways to use the costumes to benefit others, to benefit what you're doing, share messages. And I love that brands have noticed and noticed what you guys are doing and want to work with you because it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
And you guys are so talented.
You've done, I think Wonder Woman is your big kind of charity costume.
So
fun. Tell us about that.
I haven't worn her in a while and I need to.
Like the Linda Carter vintage Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it was always so fun to wear, especially when little girls come up. They were like, oh, it's Wonder Woman. And I'd be like, when we take a picture, I'm like, okay, flex your muscles. And like, it's so cute. We did one event at Dragon Con where it's like the family it was like family character meet and greet. So like they had like different superheroes, different Disney characters, and it was like a big room where families would bring their kids and they would just come walk around the room and meet like different superheroes. And so I was like Wonder Woman at that event. It was like always one of my favorite things that I did because they were just so excited and it was so cute. So that's always fun to me. I love working with the kids and the costumes is so fun.
I am curious, once you're kind of done wearing them, you say there's opportunity to come back and wear them again. But do you immortalize them with photo shoots always? Are there some that you don't do photo shoots with? Like, how do you kind of, keep record of these events and these memories that you're making?
I think we pretty much do photo shoots with each of the costumes. Like, some like take us months. So we're like, once I put this bad boy on, it's like, well, I'm going to get like photos of like everything. And we have like really sweet friends who take really good photos of us. And we usually meet up with them at either conventions or sometimes we'll meet like on a location, do photos. We also love to make like videos and like just different things. So yeah, I would definitely think, I don't think we've had a costume that we've never taken a photo of at all, actually.
Yeah, because so much of our stuff is like the social media aspect of it and like connecting with people through there. And like we want to show the hard work and show the finished product, which is really fun. And I think we mostly make things like for an event. Like this con is coming up and we want to wear these 2 new cosplays to that. And so at the convention, we'll usually do a photo shoot. Alexandra Lee Studios is one of our favorites. Our friend Flavored K is one of our favorite photographers. They do an amazing job. And so we just get to meet photographers, not just cosplayers and crafters, but photographers and videographers and all kinds of other people that do their art. And it's really fun to work with them because they can make us look really cool.
Yeah, and it's collaborative because they take really good photos. So it's really, it's like a big collaboration.
And they'll do composites and edits and fun stuff to make us look even cooler. Yeah.
I'm curious too, like how many cons do you guys go to in a year on average, do you think? It sounds like you have a few that are traditional that you go to almost every year, but
like 4 to 5. Yeah. We have Heroes Con here in Charlotte. Dragon Con we go to every year. That's in Atlanta. We just got back from C2E2. We're going to go to New York Comic-Con in October.
Yeah, they're like our vacations and it's usually like a long weekend. So I would say like 3 to 5 each year, and some bigger than others. Usually, if it's a local con, we might just go for like the day or something. But
and then we also travel around going to Ren fairs because those are awesome.
I am curious though, what advice would you give people who want to be more involved in like a Renaissance fair? I think it's one of those things where people know theoretically like what a Renaissance fair is, but it might not get advertised as much, or it's a little bit like I see advertisements all the time for Comic-Cons, but I wonder if it's just a little bit more of a festival feeling. So maybe give listeners just a little bit more information about Ren fairs.
That's something I feel like I get asked a lot, especially like on comments on like videos or pictures. I'm like, where do you find these Ren fairs? And honestly, they're all over like the country, all over America. They're all over. Like I think just about every state has one. So I would always suggest like looking up like your local state or like surrounding states. Because we have one that's close to us. It's the Carolina Renaissance Festival. We've also been to the one in Georgia, the one in Colorado. I heard the LA one is like super huge and cool. And I think that one's like happening right now. And they happen at different times of the year is the other thing. So, ours happens in fall. I know like the Georgia one's happening right now. And yeah, they're really just all over.
And they're like permanent villages.
Yeah.
So they're like some, I guess some Ren fairs out there. I think one in Florida I'm aware of is kind of like, they set up tents. Yeah, and they kind of do a pop-up thing in like a big field. But a lot of them are like permanent villages with really cool themed buildings. And they do jousting, and there's whole cultures around them. And they have their own like royal courts and music and falconry. It's any fantasy nerd. Like go, it's like you're escaping into a fantasy novel. It's so much fun.
When did you guys go to your first like Ren fair?
It was college. It was here in Charlotte.
It was probably before we were doing
it wasn't
cosplaying.
Yeah, like 2009, 2010. I think we went, just our college friends here in Charlotte.
And we didn't even dress up. We just wore like jeans and t-shirts.
And you don't have to dress up.
You don't. No,
but it's more fun.
It is more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds similar to like different cons where it's kind of like real 50-50 who dresses up, who doesn't, that kind of a thing.
But yeah, I feel like it's become more normal. I feel like maybe it's just the TikTok algorithm I'm on, but I like see Ren Fair TikToks all the time, and I feel like it's way more of the norm to dress up now than maybe it was 10 years ago.
And you can get so much on Amazon now. Like it used to be like you had to make all of your garb is what the Ren Fair people call it.
Thrift things, you can thrift long peasant skirts and
there's a lot more available now, so people are more willing to dress up and do the fun thing.
There's something just, as you're talking about, like really liberating about stepping into a costume and then being able to be like a different version of yourself and like a little bit freer, which is really interesting, I think. How do you feel like your style has changed? You know, you cosplay first as Star Wars, but you love a huge variety of fandom. Do you feel like you've kind of changed your style or gravitate towards different fandoms?
I'd say it probably used to be like what's in our skill set is like way back in the day when we were first starting, like I did a Gandalf cosplay and it's like, it's a gray dress. Like it's got some pleats on the front and it's really not that complicated. So I wouldn't have done like Saruman or Elrond or someone from Lord of the Rings with like velvets and embroidery and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I totally do that now because I know how to do that and I know how to use those skills. And so that's also kind of what gets exciting about like when I'm playing Baldur's Gate and I see a character come up and I see that outfit, like, oh, I either want to learn skills to be able to make that, or I have all the skills to be able to make that, and that looks really cool, so I'm going to figure it out. It's like what would be exciting or maybe like in a special challenge versus like this would be really easy and I could whip this out in like 3 days. I should probably do more of that though. I should probably do more easy projects.
I think the same. I think like I usually gravitate towards a character's personality that I like. And like they're not always wearing like, you know, this beautiful sewn dress. It's like sometimes it's like a character that's in like a silly little outfit that it could be easily thrifted or something. So I guess the same for me. It's like I usually gravitate towards the character of the fandom that I'm into at the moment and then kind of figure it out.
How many of your costumes, percentage-wise, do you feel like are like couples costumes that you create?
Those tend to be more fun. So we do lean towards those, and even like odd couples, like we did Merlin and Mad Madam Mim from Sword in the Stone. So they're not a couple, but they go together.
That's awesome.
So maybe like 60 to 70%.
They are more fun when you
are
do
the
couple. I feel like, and sometimes we also like have friends that are also into the same thing, and then we usually like collaborate as a group of people to like.
Oh, fun!
Yeah, you'll each of us will be this character, and then most of the time, me and Michael are not connected in any way, but in the same movie or something like that.
Yeah, I did Peter Baelish from Game of Thrones, and then Haley did Alicent from House of the Dragon. Like we are 160 years apart, but we go together, kind of
in the same world.
It works.
Yes.
And then like Philip and Aurora the next day is an actual cosplay. Yeah, and those are really fun. People see us together, and they connected, like, oh, y'all look so great, and people are so kind. It's fun.
It's almost like another context clue for people to like get what you guys are doing.
Yes,
I feel like when you do the couples costumes, because they're like, oh, that looks familiar. Oh yeah, it's from that show, and then they can kind of like connect with it, which is so fun. I did want to just ask. We have it down as a question, Michael. We want you to tell us about your winning Her Universe fashion show in 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And tell me everything about that. Okay, I want to make sure I said the award correctly, but I want to know about this experience. I vaguely remember hearing about it, and we're bringing it back up. Let's talk about it.
Sure, yeah, I love talking about it. So Her Universe is a nerd fashion brand that was started by Ashley Eckstein, who's the voice of Ahsoka Tano in Star Wars, the Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels. And so she was noticing as she was going to conventions that a lot of, especially female fans, really didn't have a voice in fandom, especially maybe in some fandoms like Star Wars potentially, where like men's voices tend to really dominate a lot of that space. And so she created a brand called Her Universe, which is like female women's clothing for nerdy women. And it really popped off, and it got connected with Hot Topic. And so she started doing this fashion show at San Diego Comiccon every year. I think I think it's the 10th anniversary this year. Yeah. So it's been going on for a while, and it started out with like designers would design for a model, like a runway model would be walking down the runway. But now, for the most part, people kind of make things for themselves to wear down the runway. There's a mix, like you can still design for a model and have somebody else wear it, but a lot of people designing for themselves. And so the brand has expanded over the years. As part of now, like our universe is like the dude brand, and so there's more guys clothes now, which I'm very thankful for. And it's very inclusive and diverse fandom for lots of cool people. So it's a brand I really respect. And so doing this fashion show, it's like geek couture. So it's not a cosplay contest. Like you're not walking in there like, I'm going to make a screen accurate Doctor Strange. You're making a fashion piece that's inspired by your fandom. So it's not a Cinderella gown. It'd be like a Cinderella suit jacket that you take off and do like a transformation, or like a Wonder Woman thing, or like, there's been so many cool ones. All of the fashion shows are on YouTube. So if you haven't watched them, go watch like all of the shows while you're working on your cosplays or something. It'll inspire you. And so I entered. I contacted some of the previous winners. I'm like, oh, like, should I enter? I don't know if I can do this. And they're like, yes, Michael, go do it. You're crazy. Go enter the show. And so I designed a concept based off of Doctor Strange, because I keep coming back to him. And my kind of inspiration was what was exciting me about menswear at the time. There was this Alexandra McQueen suit that had this asymmetrical skirt feature, and there was a Randy Rom cape suit combo that was worn by Billy Porter at the Golden Globes. And it was just like, I want to wear that. Like, I want to wear that garment. That looks so cool. I want that on my body. And so taking inspiration from those and then combining it with Doctor Strange's costume and doing like a mashup of the fashion and the costume, and submitted that as my entry, and it got accepted. And that was really cool. Some people submit over years, and it's tough to get in. It's a competitive show. About 25 designers enter each year. And I got in, and we went to San Diego Comiccon, and we practiced the runway walk. Hayley was very encouraging and supportive and instructive and telling me to slow down. It's pretty nerve-wracking being up there on the runway and like, oh, I'm taking up too much space, and what do I do with my hands, and what do I do with my eyes, and it's a full body experience. And I did this cape for Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation that held all these mirrors on the inside. And I wanted that to be like the mirror dimension, and I wanted to have this big reveal moment. And so practice. And we got a lot of feedback from the team, the Her Universe team that was there. Nina West, the drag queen, was the co-host, and Nina West was there and gave me suggestions on my runway walk. And Ashley Eckstein gave me suggestions, and Hayley gave me lots of suggestions. And and everybody was so nice. All of the other contestants, like we've been in some cosplay contests where it's like people are kind of competitive and out for blood. Yeah. But for this one, we were all just felt like we were vibing. All of the designers and the models, we were just having the best time backstage and just talking and admiring each other's work. And it just didn't feel competitive at all to me. It just felt like we're all just here to put on a good show. And so I did the reveal, and did the runway walk, and it was very exhilarating. And so there's 2 winners at each show. There's a judge's choice. So there's a panel of judges, and then the audience choice, which everybody in the room, it's like 2,500 seats, I think, vote there in the hall about who their favorite is. And so Cindy Guillermo, my co-winner, won judge's choice. She did a design inspired by Turning Red, the Disney movie. This really cool like puffer jacket and skirt and
street fashion.
She's the coolest. Cindy is so cool. And she came up with a really like thoughtful and insightful design. And then I won audience choice. So the people voted me as one of their favorites. And it was a really, really, really cool moment. Yeah. And it just makes me happy to think about.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Is it through that winning that you then got invited to do, was it the Marvel I'm trying to remember, like, then was it just last year?
Right.
That you judged something?
Yes.
Okay.
So her universe was in the year I won was 2022. And then you come back the next year to judge the next show. So the winners are part of the next year's judges panel. And so I got brought out to help judge the 2023 show, which was also a lot of fun because I didn't have to make anything.
Yeah.
I made a fun suit anyway, and inspired by Mon Mothma from Andor, another Alexander McQueen mashup. I'm kind of one note when it comes to that. And so for winning the contest, you get to design a collection for her universe in Hot Topic. And amazingly, it was the Marvels, the superhero trio movie that came out last year. And so we got to inspire items or make items inspired by that movie, which was really a
Very
thrill.
cool.
And me and Cindy got to work really closely together on our designs. And then a year passed, and then they were physical garments, and it was crazy. And I think because of my Doctor Strange suit is why Marvel reached out to me for the judging thing in 2023. The stage show, yeah.
That's
It's
amazing.
crazy.
I'm like, what cool connections and that you get to make through story here and your different talents and arts. I am curious, and this is more a question for people who are looking to get into cosplay more. But I am curious, on average, how much money or how much it costs to create a costume. And I'm assuming some of them you really go all in on, and then some of them are a little bit more in budget. So just for any aspiring cosplayers, what can they kind of do to budget for this type of hobby and passion and art,
Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that question. I think that's like an important thing for people to like know to go into, because I like when we first started, like we were using like what's the cheapest looking like fabric that could look very similar, and like burlap was like $5 a yard. So I was like, okay, that'll work. Yeah, because we did like a basket weave.
Yeah,
so
the screen accurate Kylo Ren basket weave is like $20 a yard. It's
I was like, burlap passed the test. But yeah, it's like I feel like now that we've like kind of like established ourselves as cosplayers, like one thing we like do get fortunate to work with like different fabric companies that like I'll leave a message to be like, hey, we're making this costume, like, and sometimes they're like, I saw you this fabric on your site, and then sometimes they're like sure, we'll send it to you. So like when that happens, that's like a blessing. But it doesn't always happen. Like if we go, we're kind of like in a, like, we don't have a lot of like fashion fabric stores where we're near. So I do a lot of shopping online. And it can add up so fast. It can be so hard, especially when you're trying to like color match something, or,
pattern
texture. It can be so hard sometimes. So sometimes we won't even do projects if we can't find a fabric that is cost efficient and something that we can easily find, because some are just like white whales out there.
Because these film departments, I mean, their budgets are millions of dollars. Exactly. They can afford to buy 50 yards of the crazy silks and everything.
Roll. Yeah.
And
so yeah, well,
right.
So like, yeah, I was just gonna say that like me personally, I get a thrill off going to Goodwill or going to thrift stores and like finding curtains or finding sheets or finding something that could work for what we're doing. Honestly, that's always like my biggest tip for people starting out. It's like, if you're able to find something that's similar that could be dyed, like if you got white sheets and you needed it to be magenta, like it's so much cheaper to buy the 99-cent sheets and then like a $3 bottle of magenta dye and then try to dye it yourself. If like cost is like a big, a big factor in like starting cosplay, like that's something that I feel like anyone can do. It's very easy to do. But other than that, like, there's a lot of different like wholesale websites or like thrift fabric websites that we go to. I wish we had a good fabric store near us other than like, Joann's, but yeah.
Yeah, I can think of I made my Doctor Strange Ragnarok tunic out of a linen sheet that was $3. I made the entire tunic out of that fabric, so that was $3. I made a Jedi Master Dooku from Tales of the Jedi out of curtains. I think those were probably $2 or $3 each. My Prince Philip cape is curtains and a bed sheet.
Damask, like back,
yeah,
but it was.
It's like a bed sheet or curtains or something, and it's like, it's just rip it down, and it's like Julie Andrews and Sound of Music, like turn the curtains into clothes.
100% had that thought. I was thinking the exact same thing.
That's us, yeah. But don't be like me and just buy stuff because it's pretty, and then like keep it on the shelf.
Yeah, the hoard.
Oh no,
we have a "this could be something someday" pile, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's. So yeah, as far as cost, I mean, like our Allison Hightower dress, the green silk one, that was our most expensive that we've ever made. And we crowdsourced on Ko-fi for people who super generously donated so that we could make that dress and afford the screen accurate fabric. So it ranges from there. It's like, that was probably over $1,000. And then, the like Dr. Strange cost $3. It's
and another thing to always keep in mind too is that like there's going to be a lot of hidden extra costs, which are like snaps, closures, binding,
your notions.
Yeah.
And one of my little hot tips that I do personally is I'll go on eBay and look up like sewing lot notions or something like that. If I look up like just vintage sewing lots, and a lot of times it might be someone who's like purging stuff from a home, or they're like, we need to get rid of like all this sewing stuff. And I found some like amazing deals for a whole bunch of notions. I think like one time I spent like $20 and got like a giant box of stuff that we still use and go through.
Yeah, the hook and eyes haven't changed in 50 years.
Exactly.
Like they're exactly the same. So you don't need to buy them fresh and new from a store.
New.
Do buy new thread.
New thread. Old thread is your enemy.
Old thread will break. And
it snaps. It dries out. Don't get those old jars full of thread and like, oh, here we go. Like, nope, throw that away.
So like metal closures, ribbons, all that's good for a very long time.
Oh yeah, they last forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Well, thank you so much for giving tips for our listeners as they get into cosplay. I think we just have one more question.
I have two.
Oh, you have one? Okay, so Kelly, you go ahead and
slide one in.
Yeah, go for it.
And then we'll wrap up. But well, Michael, this one's for you. You've mentioned 2 or 3 times that you kind of are drawn back to Doctor Strange, that character. I was just wondering, is there a like backstory as to why, or you just really enjoy that character? Didn't know if there was a little bit more to it.
So yeah, so my handle is the Wizard Taylor on Instagram, and so definitely always identified with wizards all growing up. It was Harry Potter, and still is Lord of the Rings, and Wizard of Earthsea, and it was just fantasy all the time. And so as soon as Marvel came out with its own magic system and the sorcerers and everything in there, it's just the costume is so intricate and complicated and beautiful. And I looked at it and just, I need to own that. Like I need to wear that. Like I need to feel what that feels like for myself. And took that on in 2018. So that was like maybe 2 years into our cosplay adventure. And I made it. And looking back on it now, there's lots of things I'd like to improve on it, but it still holds up after all these years. I'm like, we made that. Like we made this crazy complicated costume, and it really taught us a lot about like where to put hooks and eyes, and where to put Velcro, and where to put like the closures to make it not just a garment, but like a costume that can be worn, rather than like you can take this off a mannequin and then put it on your body and it's incredibly uncomfortable and it's incredibly hard to move in. It's like, make it work, make it like functional. You can move your shoulders, move it, your hems are finished. You're not disintegrating all over the place. And so that was a huge undertaking. And it really taught me that like we can do this. Like we can see something and clothes are just shapes. and you just have to figure out how the shapes fit together, one step at a time. And so I've made his OG tunic from the first movie. I made his Ragnarok tunic. And I'm about to undergo a project over the next year where I'm going to completely remake my Cloak of Levitation to as screen accurate as I can possibly get it, which I know a lot more about it now than I did in 2018. So that's going to be a big undertaking for me.
I'm like, amazing.
Oh,
and
Michael,
you sparked an additional question. So we just can't stop talking about this. I am such a huge fan of costume set, music design in movies, like the whole experience of a movie. And I have a few like moments that I really love from movies where it's my favorite of that thing. And so what is, in all of the films that you've seen, do you have a favorite costume or wardrobe that just, maybe not one you've ever made, but one that just stands out to you as being like, seamstress genius, or how would you even say that? Like wardrobe genius, right? For a film.
Oh,
I mean, I'll share mine and then you can share yours. So mine is Marie Antoinette, the Sofia Coppola with Kirsten Dunst. They won the Academy Award for the costuming. And that one is my personal favorite because I just think that it was brilliant to go with the pastels in this lavish French experience. They could have just gone so royal and regal, and she didn't. She went in this different direction that I felt like, it felt like you were eating a macaron the whole time, right? It just like the whole experience. And they did that with costuming, which was just brilliant. And so I am curious if there's ones that stand out to you that you're like, oh, like that's all I can think about when I think about that movie.
First of all, that's such a good answer because that whole movie makes you feel like let them eat cake, and like the entire time it feels like we're just eating cake with our eyes and so feminine and coquette. And I also love that movie.
Yeah, it's so good. I know.
Oh my gosh, the first one that came to mind was Black Panther. I like that one was just all the beading and technical work, and with the mix of like sci-fi and like African culture, like
3D
that
printing.
one. Oh my gosh, both of those films are I just think like eye candy. And I think like my personal favorite, like bias favorite, is Game of Thrones. Like I live in those costumes. Gosh, they're gorgeous. And like if you ever look at the details on those costumes, every single one of them has like hidden embroidery. Like everything is hand sewn, hand beaded, just quilted, like so much texture. It's just lavish. I love those costumes in that show.
Yeah, Game of Thrones definitely stands out to me. Is we have the Game of Thrones costume book that came out after the show ended, and it's just the crazy details. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is absolutely stunning. The costume designer, she was trained as a painter, and so color was very important to her, and so all of the colors were symbolic, and just the period pieces and the Dior silhouettes and everything. Like Haley and I can't watch that show and not be like, okay, let's find a pattern for that. Let's find the fabric for that. I think we've made 2 or 3 Miss Maisel outfits so far. Really, really inspirational. Donna Zakowska. And then anything by Sandy Powell. Sandy Powell is one of my favorites. She did an interview for Mary Poppins Returns for the hand painted, the cover is not the book costumes, the purple dress that she wears, and then the it's all hand painted, all of their costumes. And I remember in an interview she said that like she was so scared of those costumes, like Oscar winning costume designer. She was so scared of those costumes because she didn't think they would work. They wouldn't work on the screen, that the director would think they were ugly and they would just be awful. And she was so scared. And then everyone saw them and thought they were incredible, and they worked perfectly, and they were beautiful. And that just teaches me like, oh, when I'm in my sewing room and I'm like, I can't do this, or this looks bad, or this is beyond me. I'm like, oh, Sandy Powell thought the same thing. And if she can do it, then so can I.
Yes. I love that. I love that example. So I think just one last question, right?
Yeah. Yep. We just wanted you guys to tell us what you're working on right now. Tell us all the secrets.
Yeah.
Individually, together, all of it.
What are we working on right now? We just got back from C2E2 in Chicago. 2 days ago. So we just like cranked out like our Peter Baelish and Alison Hightower costumes. So now we're in the zone of
let's do nothing for a week.
Let's do nothing for a week and then
recover.
So it's going to be from the Marvels, Captain Marvel's dance dress that she wears for about 3 seconds.
Yes.
Gonna make that for Hayley. I'm gonna start on one of the villains from Baldur's Gate, Ember Gortash. He has this crazy collar with dragons all over it and all these rings, and I'm gonna 3D print a whole bunch of stuff, and that's gonna be so much fun. Remaking the Cloak of Levitation, that's gonna be a huge undertaking. That's all me. I think we want to make a King Joffrey from Game of Thrones for Hayley. Hayley wants to be king, just a horrible little goblin. Yeah, he's just so awful, and it's fun to be those characters sometimes. And then lots of little stuff, little projects in between to keep us motivated and excited. Because it's fun, like when you're working on like a 4-month build or a 3-month build or something, like, oh, this is never going to end. And sometimes just popping out like a silly thing, a little Ren Fair. I made a Princess Leia dress in a weekend. It helps with motivation to like, okay, I made something. Like I'm done.
Completed.
Rather than this took months and months and months, and I'm losing all my motivation to do it. It really helps me stay focused by getting distracted.
Amazing.
Yeah.
No, it's like it's a quick win.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense. Well, just thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for answering so many fun and interesting questions about your passion, your art. I feel like the folks at all these cons are kindred spirits. And so it's so lovely to chat with you and to kind of see how your love of story comes to life. And so thank you for coming. Thank you, reader, for listening to this episode of the Lit Joy Podcast. Please remember to rate and review us.
And like a good book, recommend us to your friends.